Welcome back to Reddit Aliens, everyone. I'm John, hello again, and today we go back to a familiar topic. What's a paranormal or unexplainable experience you've had? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. My mom was in the hospital 50 miles away. I was 19. We were pretty sure this was it. I was home alone. My parents' house is big. It's off the beaten path on a small lagoon. My dad had been staying up at the hospital. That night I went to bed at around 1 a.m. I was playing on my laptop. My room was in a separate wing of the house. It can be sealed off with a single locking door. The door was shut but not locked. I've always been scared of the dark, so I had the lights in my wing on. So was the closet light. As I was messing around on GameFAQs, I saw the light in my wing turn off, all of them. The band of light under the door went black. I hopped up in bed and stared at it. My bedroom door was unlocked, and I was debating getting up to lock it when the shut door slammed, as in, it sounded like someone straight up kicked the bottom of the door with all their strength. I remember squeaking in shock. It took me about 6 seconds to be up on both feet with the blade about 4 pieces back and just right at the door. I remember thinking if the door opened, I could be on whoever it was almost instantly. I was also silently cursing that there was no light under the door anymore, no way to see the shadow of whoever was out there. Nothing happened. I was fighting off the fear of the situation and stupidly decided that going on offense was all that was left. I didn't have a phone in my room, and my Nokia was in another wing of the house charging. I threw the door open with my knife low and my left hand in a guarded position. There was no one there. I tossed the hallway light switch on. There was no one in my wing. There was no one in the house. The burglar alarm was still on. Confused, I turned on the main house lights and sealed the wing off, and locking the door. I went back to my room and just sat there with my laptop open. My bedroom door now had a slight bow in it. A couple hours passed with me wearily laying in bed. Around 3 a.m., the lights under the door went dark. Now, I was terrified. My knife seemed pretty insignificant, and my previous dumb courage had run out. I scooted my bed, no easy task, against the bedroom door. Grateful, the door opened inward. It all felt so wrong, like something was angry with me. I retreated to my closet and waited for the sun to come up. When the skylight in my room got bright, my courage returned, and I moved the bed and exited my room. The wing door had been unlocked, which required a key from the other side. I heard footsteps coming down the stairs in the main house and realized my dad was home. I felt a little foolish, as obviously he had been responsible for turning the lights off the second time. I lead my greeting with, "Oh, so it was you who turned all the lights off?" He looked at me and replied, "What? I got home about 10 minutes ago." I have zero clue what happened that night, but it never happened before that night or after. Whatever it was, it seemed to like the dark and wasn't a fan of doors, and it seemed to be in my wing of the house. My parents built the house, and nothing untoward had ever taken place there. My bedroom door at my parents' house still has a bow in it to this day. This was almost 20 years ago. My mom is still alive, and for that, I'm extremely grateful. My sister and I are very close. We kind of had to stick together because my big brother is or was such a bullying turd. She is 3 years older than I am. This is way before them our fancy cell phones, internet access, etc. I was 14, into baseball and playing in a tournament in another state. Sis had gone to the beach with her friend and her friend's family. On Sunday afternoon, the sun was out, no clouds, great day for baseball. From nowhere, the daylight seemed like I was in a dark room with a 40-watt bulb at the far end. Don't know how, but I knew that Sis was going to be or already had been involved in a car wreck. All I could do was sit in that dugout and keep repeating to myself over and over, "Sis, get out of the car and walk." After an interval, don't know how long it was, everything returned to normal sight-wise. Played the games for the tournament, third place, damn. And it was after 1 a.m. when we pulled into the driveway. Heard the phone ringing when we were at the front door. It was my sister. Panicked, anxious, but unhurt. She and her friend had gotten out of the car 1 block before a drunk driver hit the car at about 90 miles per hour, putting her friend's mother and sister in the hospital ICU. The mom died about a month later because of the wreck. Sis said they got out because she kept hearing me in her head, almost screaming for her and her friend to get out of the car. I can still feel when she's down, and vice versa. But there was never anything this bad before or since. Can't explain that. One day during 4th grade, I didn't go outside for recess like I was supposed to. What can I say? It was hot, and I was not an outdoorsy kid. I was inside, near the stairs to the 2nd floor. I started to hear music playing, and noted it was coming from the 2nd floor. I can't remember the song, but it sounded like an operatic choir of some kind. This hadn't happened before, so I went upstairs to investigate where the sound was coming from. When I got to the top of the stairs, there are 4 classrooms: the computer lab, the library, the art room, and the music room. I peek into each classroom first. No one is in any of them, and there's no evidence of a CD or cassette player. I look in the computer lab and find nothing and no one. I go into the library. The music gets louder, but there's no one else around, and no visible music player. The art room is locked, but looking inside there doesn't seem to be anything in there that would be playing the music. I finally look in the music room. It's empty, and although the music is loudest here, there's nothing playing any music in the room. At this point I'm weirded out, and I go back downstairs and out the door. When the bell rings and I come back in with everyone, the music had stopped. That's a pretty cool school where you can be a 4th grader left unattended from any adult supervision. I might opt for that too. I was much younger and on a church camping trip where I spent the night in a large cabin full of empty beds with the exception of 4 other occupied spaces, and we were all spaced out. Attendance was low at this retreat. I had the weirdest dream that a hairy creature was standing up outside my window, peeping in and watching me sleep. This scared me, so I woke up and peeped outside my window. I was frightened beyond words upon catching a glimpse of a coyote or large dog running away from the cabin in the moonlight. Thinking about this still creeps me out. When I was 7 years old, I came home from visiting my grandma and I told my mom that I could smell fire. She didn't smell anything and told me I was imagining it. Throughout the day, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a fire near me. I couldn't sleep that evening, so I went downstairs a few times, where my mom was working, to tell her I was worried. The 3rd time I went downstairs, we heard a big explosion and went outside to check. A truck containing tinder crashed into the garden center next door, and it just caused a huge fire. I still don't know specifically if this was real, but it comforts me. I used to have a pony that calloused while I was out of town. I had people who sent him to an animal hospital to have emergency surgery since it wasn't looking good. He had the surgery and was in recovery for a few days. I remember during a Friday night, I had this strange dream that felt so real. I was in his stall with him, just grooming him, and I felt so at peace. Despite not being able to speak with him, I felt as if he was telling me he was okay, and that I would be okay. I woke up feeling so at peace, but that quickly slipped away when I received a call saying he had calloused again, and early in the morning, and had passed away. I don't know what to make of it, and 3 years later, it still breaks my heart, but I think he came to me to say goodbye. It may have been my subconscious trying to comfort me, but I think I'll choose to think about it as him saying goodbye, and it's all going to be okay. I miss you, Bubba. I was about 8 to 9 years old, playing with some Star Trek action figures in my bedroom. Yes, I was a cool kid. My room was positioned directly above a guest room, which was almost never used, and I almost never entered. The furniture was outdated compared to the rest of the house, and it just had a creepy vibe. This will be relevant later. I had a Spock action figure which broke apart easily. His shirt would snap into 2 pieces by pressing on the seam, and then all his limbs would fall off. He was easy to repair, so I took him apart often. He'd been used for body parts if I wanted to pretend someone had been killed by an alien. One day, just as I had set up a decidedly gruesome Star Trek scene, my mom called me down for dinner. When I came back upstairs after eating, I noticed that Spock was gone. Just him though. All the other action figures were still in the little circle exactly as I left them. I searched that night before bed, thinking my younger brother, my only sibling who was 2 years old at the time, may have somehow gotten into my room and moved my stuff. It had never happened before, but it was all I could think of. The whole family was at dinner, and there was no chance for anyone to go upstairs and move anything. The next morning, I searched the house for Spock. Nothing. Not put away. Not in my brother's room. Not in the living room. It was baffling. As a last-ditch effort, I decided to check the guest room. The room looked untouched as usual, except for one thing. A dismantled Spock action figure in the exact same position as I had left him in my room the night prior, directly below where I had been playing with him in my bedroom. I asked my mom and dad. They claimed to know nothing about it. My younger brother could not have made it down the stairs and also would not have been able to make the same Spock pile that I had made the previous night. It was as if my toy had just translated a few feet in the Z direction, right through the floor. I still don't have an explanation. Don't make a beam me up reference. Don't make a beam me up reference. Maybe he got beamed up. Had a dream I was meeting my then boyfriend's father at a cafe. I told him I was sad, and we didn't get to know each other before he passed away, and he said, well, let's get to know each other now. I knew in the dream that it wasn't a dream, and I asked him how will I prove this to my boyfriend. He said, he will know because fire alarm, and then we chatted forever. I woke up right before my alarm went off at 9:55. I was a server and got to sleep in. My then boyfriend had an office job and was already at work by 9 a.m. I go about my day and forget about the dream. When we're both off later that day, we're sitting in his car, and I remember to tell him about his dad in my dream and how he would know it was real because the fire alarm. My boyfriend started crying and was really shaken up and said that they had a fire drill that morning at 10 a.m. in the office. I even had him call his coworker and ask about it in a non-leading way because I thought he was messing with me. We're not religious, but it was nice to think his dad was checking in on him after having some health issues recently. When my dad was doing chemo and not doing well, he specifically requested to play Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones at his wake. He didn't want people to be sad and wanted them to be reminded of who he was. His wake sucked. A lot of his friends were really shocked. It was a lot of explaining of what happened, very draining. I lost track of everything and never got to play it. The very next day, his funeral procession to the crematory to pick him up, and then the cemetery to pop him in the wall, then a bereavement lunch. I planned to play that song at the cemetery. We drove his car those 2 days, being that he left it to me, and he left Q104.3 on the radio all the time, classic rock. All of a sudden, I hear the first riff to Satisfaction. That man said, I'll do it myself. I worked part-time as a custodian on my university campus for a while. There were many times that I would be alone in a building early in the morning before any staff or students came in. It was usually a pretty relaxing and chill time to just be on my own like that for a bit. There's one time something weird happened though, and I still can't come up with a rational explanation for it. So, one morning I was working in a building that was owned by university, but it was off the main campus by about a mile. It used to be an old middle school before the university bought it. It's now used for various science labs and staff offices. I was doing my normal morning routine, and I was going through cleaning all the restrooms in the building first thing at 6 a.m. Now, keep in mind, I'm supposed to be the only person in this building until 7:30 a.m. when people start coming in. When I came in, I unlocked and relocked the door behind me, so no one else should have been in this building. I get to the women's restroom on the far side of the building. I don't bother to knock on the door as I should be the only person in the building. As I open the door, I see a woman standing with her back against the wall. Now this particular bathroom is shaped like a T. The stalls are in the long part of the T, so when you open the door you can only see the sink and the stalls are at a view behind the corner. So I only saw half of this woman, as the half of her body was behind this corner of the wall that she was leaning on. I just said sorry and explained that I should be the only person in the building right now, so I didn't bother to knock on the door. The woman then proceeds to dash around the corner, and I hear her shut herself in a stall farthest from the entrance. I yelled in saying I was sorry if I scared her, and again explained that I should have been the only person in the building. I then hear her start pounding on the door of the stall. Now I'm scared. So I close the door and block it with my cleaning cart. I call my supervisor and explain that there is some woman in the building who has just locked herself in the stall. I thought that maybe she was some drug addict that somehow snuck into the building at night. So, like 10 minutes later, a couple of campus security guys show up. I open the door to the restroom, and the two of them go in with me behind. We all clearly heard and saw the woman pacing back and forth in the stall. The security guys try to talk to her for a bit to get her to come out. They go absolutely no response. They then say that they are coming in and open the door. All three of us were utterly speechless when the door to the stall opened and no one was there. Later, they checked the building security footage for the previous night and did not see anyone enter the building. I don't believe in anything supernatural, but I still cannot explain this. I worked in the same building before and after this incident probably 30 plus times and never experienced anything weird like this again. Again, I do love when people say they don't believe in the supernatural after telling a story like this. So if you don't, then what was that woman or half of a woman that you saw and heard and have witnesses? What do you think, the wind? I moved home for a bit after college. My parents went on a trip in 1 week. The first day they're gone, I'm awoken by the noise of someone rumbling around in my parents' bedroom. I assume it's my mom, only to remember they're gone. Go into the bedroom, not a soul there. I go out of town that night and get a panicky call from my sister saying she was in the crawl space and heard someone walking over her and thought there was a burglar. Again, no one there. Finally, I get home, and for 2 nights I feel someone touching my pillow and sitting on my bed along with hearing sighs while sleeping. It all culminates with my dad, who is a total skeptic, hearing someone trying the door to the garage and thinking it was one of us kids. Again, he goes to check it out and nothing there. And as suddenly as it all started, stopped, and nothing further. I'm going to try to explain this the best way I can. So I'm a skeptical person when it comes to paranormal stuff. I can always find logical explanations to most things that happen. I believe 15 out of 10 times when people report seeing things, it's just a case of apophenia. Anyway, this happened when I was about 10 years old. My dad had taken my brother, a couple friends, and me off-road go-karting in a small rural town in northern Mexico about 40 miles south from where we lived. On our way back late that night, we came up to a red light at an intersection. On the opposite corner, there was a cemetery on the left side of the road. While we were waiting at the red light, there was another car directly in front of us with their lights on. I remind you, this was late and dark in a rural town with dirt roads, also waiting. And another car, who had the green light, passed from right to left, lifting up a cloud of dirt. In that cloud of dirt that was left, with the car that was in front of us with his lights on, you could clearly see the silhouettes of what appeared to be an adult and 2 kids walking across the street in the opposite direction of the cemetery. The crazy thing about this is that all 6 of us in the car saw it happen. To this day, I can't explain what happened or how it happened. I've asked my dad 18 years later if he remembers, and he does, but he also can't explain what it was. My dad told me a story once of someone he knew in the 1970s whose dad was an alcoholic. He told me 2 separate stories. So, the first instance was his friend seeing his dad coming home in his truck. In the passenger seat is what appears to be a black cloaked figure with a large crow's beak coming out of the head. Just imagine a tall shadow completely black with a curved beak coming out of the head. This thing vanished when his dad parked the truck. The next instance was in the house in the living room. They watched the same thing glide across the room from the kitchen and into another hallway, completely black and silent. He told me when I was a kid, but it sort of stuck with me, and I always think back to it, as if it was a symbol of death.